Breaking news. Russia-Ukraine conflict. Trump's 28-point plan that was supposed to come officially tomorrow, but now, just in the last 25 minutes, at least out of UK news sources, they're saying the European Union has rejected the plan point blank. And if you've read it, anybody, the Russian frozen assets to go to the rebuild of Ukraine that were frozen, but also a commitment from the European Union on $100 billion to be invested in that Ukraine rebuild too. They've apparently given a hard no, forget it. And Ukraine now, as Zelensky gave a big speech 24 hours ago now, that was supposed to be ironed out tomorrow, but it looks like the colonial powers of Europe are not going to go through with it. It's lunatic. This means everybody, Canada isn't going to go through it. And this is the point where all these folks, Canada, European Union, the world of civil law socialists, and this superior complex mindset of these who feel they're superior to all kinds of republics, absolutely Russians and Americans, they believe in their crazy elite statuses that somehow they're going to land a spanking on Vladimir Putin and Russia. And of course, USA doesn't want to go there, and rightfully so. Why should they? They're trying to settle the world down. This also sets the stage for the future of Canada and USA. Believe it or not, I can read between the lines. I see all of that. But Europe doesn't want to have to stand on their own 2 feet. They always, just like Canada, this is a colonial mindset of these self-grandized elites. Not so much the people, even though the people live blindly in these systems. If you haven't watched PBS, I've showcased 3 parts. Of course, the first one last night, you can hear my voice. I've taken ill. I've got a sinus cold and, of course, a little bit of a throat and cough. But should get over that in the next week, but I apologize. Not at my best. And so, yeah, I fell asleep in the first episode. But I'm going to release all those episodes until I get nailed and get disqualified from Facebook, which will probably happen. The link for streaming, that's German and Russian. I have great access to most of the world's library of academic publications for doctorates. That was given to me by Germany, and that's my work in international law and constitutionalism globally. German universities, the German government gave me that. And then, of course, I have this website for streaming too. And I don't know how long that's going to last. It is Russian supported as well too. And it's kind of fitting for what we went through in the PBS presentation of the American Revolution, War of Independence. A whole bunch of avenues, never really explored. I find it great. I'm going to release the rest of the parts for all of you, probably later tonight. I'll try not to fall asleep. If it gets too late, I'll go to bed before I do that. They're 2 hours a shot, and I'll be doing that. But, it's the evil of Europe and the self-grandizing of elite politicians without any kind of military might, none whatsoever. It's always based off USA capitulate to our holdings as a superpower. Like, everybody understand international relations here. United States is now the most powerful military force in the world. And they are largely, in many capacities, including the worst being Canada, what USA has to capitulate to in the Arctic, being the nice guys. Nice guys finish last. And I'm a Christian too, and I have Christian principles. But one thing about monarchies is that they're not really Christian at all. That's a farce. And the elites, you learn really quick as a Canadian. You should know as a European that if you follow that and you deal with the government of these systems in that manner, you're going to get taken to the cleaners every time because they don't follow it. It's enshrined that they are the superior beings. They are higher than God or empowered by God, usually hereditary, and they have those systems in place. Even France is that way. If you haven't been paying attention to Macron over the last year, he's a pure dictator, appointing his prime ministers. He's president, but they have the prime minister system. No different than Russia. In fact, worse than Russia, because at least Russia has the election. You don't see those people removed at will, right? You can run Russia down, but they have their stable elections. They've got some of the American check marks here, whereas a lot of these European powers do not. And if you didn't know, when UK did Brexit, France became the ultimate power and authority over the European Union. I know. But Dave, there's a president, blah, blah, blah. In international law, it is France who's United Nations Security Council permanent member with those grand powers and the veto. So they effectually control all of Europe now since Brexit. It used to be shared UK and France, but now UK is much weaker. They still control all of their Commonwealth, which really cripples Canada and the mentality of Canada. But understand, Canada and Canadian subjects will be the cannon fodder for Europe. Through France and absolutely the Commonwealth Charter, aka UK, we will be the cannon fodder in any future dealings in military with Russia. And if you think that USA can afford to lease all of these assets all over the European world, the Arctic expanse, the Northern Pacific and Atlantic expanse, for the European Union, for Canada, other colonial holdings. We're talking about Iceland, Greenland. It is insane what the American people have to fund, when realistically they don't have to at all. We talk about Greenland, Iceland, all the way, honestly, all the way to Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway. The reality is, USA doesn't have to capitulate in an old world system that they were ushered into as a middle power, because they are a dynamite superpower. Russia knows it. NATO knows it. USA is the might of all of it. When the USA walks away, the American people aren't held on the hook for it. And this gets right into tariffs and what Trump's doing. And realistically, with all the military leases out there that USA has been forced to capitulate to through treaty, that honestly has no mechanism of enforcement. They couldn't hold the United States to any of that anymore if USA doesn't want to. No one can make them. And realistically, the American people shouldn't have to. That's the truth. Canada and its security and everything is all from the United States. If you've never looked at the lowly, degenerate military district system of Canada that's all colonial, it's all British, and it's never evolved, it's pathetic. There's nothing of it in the Arctic. Whoever's ever told you that, or any future of Canada doing Arctic commitments, is a liar. I can tell you all, I am very well versed, very well read. There isn't anybody else out there other than quiet, closeted doctorates in academic studies in Canada who will never divulge this information for their Laurentian connections and their oath-sworn commitments. But I've done this work. I know what Canada is. I've mapped their lowly, degenerate military districts that don't even go past Winnipeg when we were dealing with the Arctic. Cold Lake, Alberta, Winnipeg, and there's literally only 3 British colonial military districts absolutely designed entirely by the British Empire and never evolved since. Not an ounce. We can't even get to our one Arctic science station without absolutely Norway, a country tremendously smaller than us, less capable but more capable in the Arctic than we are, with 41 million people. A joke. And you know who else is a joke? All of Europe is an absolute joke. France has some power. UK has some power. Together, those two equal about the might of Russia, maybe, with all asset allies. That means all of the Commonwealth, all of the European Union and colonial assets they have, still to this day, that they couldn't hold. Everybody, they couldn't hold without the United States and American taxpayers. So when we look at this population, especially for Americans, you are taking care of funding more than 23% of the world's population on your taxpayer backs. You're 342 million people, and way less than half of which are the full taxpayer funding sources. You think about what you're carrying, 10 times your own weight. 10 times your own weight globally, financially. And realistically, you had to capitulate. I love the documentary on PBS. I wish someone would continue, go all the way through, all the way up to Reconstruction phase, Second Civil War. They call it the First Civil War, but it's really, like PBS stated, the Second Civil War. And realistically, it's never ended. USA made these treaty capitulations as a weakened middle power for survival, but now today it doesn't hold water. And the beautiful thing about Trump and the Trump administration, everybody, is they are addressing it, whether people like that or not. The Supreme Court, which I love, has really delayed this. It sounds like we're not even going to get a decision on anything until the summer. And of course, why would that be? Well, we know why. Because the American people are going to get their rebate checks if they get them. But absolutely, April 15th, 2026, their tax filings and returns will come through. And then you're going to be hard-pressed as any Supreme Court to piss off all those Americans that say, yeah, sorry, we're taking all that money back and giving it to the weakened world that's been taking advantage of you. You've got to carry 10 times your weight globally, even though it's unconstitutional. Think about that. And if you haven't noticed the 28-point plan that is absolutely now rejected, again, now over half an hour ago by the European Union before tomorrow's meeting, Putin's half on board, but half not. He wants NATO guarantees. He wants more. He's impressed with it. He's not completely denouncing it, even though his state Duma, which is equivalent of Congress and Senate for the United States, is vocally rejecting that. It's not official yet. And just like President of the United States, on something like that, there is the presidential veto power. Trump has that. Any president of the United States has that in relation to Congress and Senate bills. But, of course, that would hurt them if they go against Congress and Senate. But that's neither here nor there. That's what Vladimir Putin faces if he was to try and veto something like that, if they reject it. But European Union has rejected it without the military might, meaning without the United States. Come on. And you know what, Canadians? It will be your lowly, tiered, subject-less classes that will be the cannon fodder in some kind of future military conflict, let alone Ukraine and Russia. Do you really trust your crown, let alone the colonial system in all of its history? Canadians have been wiped out. I can tell you, Atlantic Canadians, one thing they do know, especially Newfoundlanders, they know absolutely that they were always the cannon fodder. Entire Newfoundland towns, all the male population wiped out in several global conflicts in their history under this Canada, sacrificed much the same way that and entirely their genetic history dates back to that. When you get into Ireland and Scotland, look what the British did to them in every major military conflict, they were always sacrificing those they deemed less subjects, less people. And it's always assigned equity. This is what Europe is. This is absolutely what Canada is in the most well-crafted and nefarious system of socialism and fascism under monarchical system is Canada. And that's what they propose. And that will be all of you who sacrificed on those future battlefields or even the current battlefields of Ukraine and Russia. If Europe and UK go that route, you'll watch your governor general, your prime minister, all your filthy premiers and lieutenant governors will all be marching that way. And it won't be their kids. It will be the lowly Canadian third-class subjects who are marched out there to die. To die, and you will die. In these wars these days, it's all technological wars. Canada is not ready for in any way, shape, or form. We've already lost so much equipment donations, wiped out our military. Our actual military GDP is much lower, as I can't account for all these things. Canada's already pulling the plug on the United States. We're seeing that. I think this 28-point plan proposal by Trump and the administration is also earmark for a future Canada, the 51st state, the hard way. And that is northern state expansion. If you haven't watched the documentary, look at the size of Maine in those time periods. Look at it now. It showed you the conflicts. If you haven't seen the part about Quebec, you should see the Western Canada ones. Even though they show these military forts, they show Russia, the Russia-America Company. They show the Spanish, where they were from Florida all the way up to California. And it's great. It's not as much as I went into, but it's awesome. And I want you all to watch that, because this is America getting ready, revisiting its roots, its truth, partisanly, all Americans, educating the people in civics, getting back to the individual, which is a blessed, beautiful thing. I love where America is today. I love where I am today and the world I'm in today and seeing it, even though it's not effectual for me as a Canadian in my lowly, degenerate monarchical system under elites. We've never changed a day since that time, and forever they've just adopted the crown power, a commune style, a pre-commie style with assigned equity. That's the only difference between the Canadian monarchical system and full-blown communism, is that the crown still owns the means of production, whereas in full communism, the workers own the means of production. But either system, the state holds all your rights, and they can giveth and taketh away. One does it as the God over you, the other does it just as you've turned that over, as an obedient system of everyone's equal under state, which is pathetic. I mean, they're both bad. They're both terrible. But arguably, in some points, monarchials are worse. Other points, communism's worse. Definitely when it comes to the fascism, absolutely the monarchical system is worse. And like I said, how they grandize themselves, how they think that USA is still that shitty little kicking around Toby boy, middle power. You gotta do this. You have to. You signed a treaty. Well, they don't have to honor any of those treaties anymore. And you and what army are going to stop them from saying, you know what? Rip them all up. You're all on your own. Good luck. Have fun with Russia. They will kick your ass. And sadly, like I said, if Canada isn't changed, it'll be Canadians going first as cannon fodder. It's sick. It's depraved. It really is genocide. That's my video, folks. Critical to share. Get it out there. It's very, very important. God bless. Bye now.